What's going on, everybody? This is Chris Classic. Dropping a card below. I hope you guys are having a good day. If nobody tells you, remember that God loves you, Christ loves you, and I love you as well. I'm praying that you guys have a wonderful day. Make sure you subscribe to the Take It Home podcast. We're going to talk about professional wrestling topics, and I'm putting my matches as classic out for professional wrestler of 14 years. Thank the Lord for allowing me to reach this milestone. There's a lot of ups and downs. We're going to talk about it. Make sure you also subscribe to C3 Ultras Involved, which is unfortunate with a whole bunch of situations, and I'm trying to handle that the best way I can, but it is still C3. The matches from Big Business, they are slowly but surely getting uploaded. Watch those matches and previous matches as well. Also, May 23rd is the 20th show of C3, not the board. Make sure you get your tickets. Dyer, Indiana, Harold's private venue. Tickets on sale now on Eventbrite. They're $5 off. They'll be $5 more at the door. Bars. God bless you, Raphael. God bless you. God bless you. I hope all is well. Yeah, March signifies my wrestling anniversary. So, 14 years. It is 14 years. And usually I say it around this time, around my oldest son's birthday. It's like when I had my first match in 2012. I want to say it was the day after or the day before. Today is the day before my son's birthday. My son turns 18 tomorrow. So, 18-year-old, little grown man. Thank you. But still, I know that it is around that. I don't remember the flyer. I remember my opponent. Shout out to the Sheik. But I don't remember the exact date. I remember it was in Gary, Indiana, at the Boys and Girls Club. I remember that. I remember I had my wrestling shoes. I didn't have boots. I had my Asics shoes. I had my black shorts, my black jean shorts, nothing else. My first song I ever came out to by myself was Country Grammar by Nelly. I'm going down, down, baby, no theater, rainbow, sweet sweeper, baby, ready to let it go, shimmy, shimmy, cocoa bar, pass it to me now. I did not pick that song. I think the song I knew that I wanted was Jay-Z's PSA, the song I still come out to. I've come out to the remix of that song. I've also come out to a song called Tops Drop by Fat Pat. I'm from Texas. Fat Pat is a legendary. Tops Drop is one of my favorite songs, so I came out to that for a little bit. But the main song I've come out to has been Jay-Z's PSA. Wow, I'm 24, going 25. Man, I'm getting old. I'm up there, man. I'm 36, and I'll be 37 next month. But yeah, I don't know why Country Grammar. Maybe it was because I was from the country, and I guess the promoter was like, hey, Country Grammar, I remember this match. I went against the Sheik, also known as Manny. God bless him. You know, my first match, one of the nicest guys and the meanest guys in the ring. One of the most painful chops I've ever had. I've had marks and scratches on my chest from that man. That match was less than 2 minutes. Yeah, I was nervous for that 2 minutes. I was nervous for the few minutes of wrestling. God bless you. God bless you as well, Mr. What's It. God bless you. But I remember because when I was, a lot of the newer guys, and I'm not knocking them, they get opportunities to wrestle for 5 to 10 minutes and stuff. But back then, to show that you was ready, to show that you was devoted into professional wrestling, who was my brother-in-law, we wanted to do this, and these guys were fine. And my promoter was like, nah, they still knew. They used to burn a hole in my heart because I'm like, I can do this. I've been doing this. I remember practice. Practice used to be Saturdays and Sundays, and it used to be in Hammond, Indiana, down the street from me. And I did it with my wife, who we definitely got this power struggle going on, but she is definitely the reason why I'm wrestling today. There will be no Classic Alpha without a matriarch. None at all. Before I even met her, she was wrestling. And she stopped wrestling, but she was wrestling or whatever because her father-in-law was doing it and stuff, and he still does it to this day. He's one of my trainers as well. Shout out to him. But still, that's one of the reasons I used to be so thirsty to go to practice. I used to be so thirsty, like, oh, we practicing, learning how to bump, learning how to take things. And I used to be so sore. I used to have to leave practice and go straight to Toys R Us. And I used to have to get on these ladders to get these bikes down. And I'm sitting here walking gingerly because it was just so, but I just loved wrestling. I've always loved wrestling. Even before I was a wrestler, I loved wrestling. I grew up watching it with my great-grandfather. That was like one of the first times we actually bonded was through professional wrestling. And it just never left my uncle. My Uncle Kevin used to talk about wrestling all the time and talk about certain things. And, you know, act like Stone Cold and The Rock and all of that stuff. Like, this is stuff that's like tradition. You know, wrestling is not just wrestling to me. It's not a hobby. It's not something I just do on the weekends. This is tradition. And what I do is I celebrate it more by being a part of it. You get what I'm saying? And it's so dope. I've met so many dope women and men. I've met some trash ones. I met some ones that shouldn't be promoters. I met some people that shouldn't wrestle. I have, but what I do is I don't try to stir the pot and I don't try to be messy. I just want people to protect the business. I want people to at least try to leave it in a better place than when they entered it. You get what I'm saying? Those are the kind of things that I try to do as a professional wrestler. I try to be the person that wrestling needs, be the wrestler that wrestling need. And I think I do a good job. You know, when people say they used to watch wrestling, I think that I can provide wrestling skills that will make the person who used to love it bring that old thing back. And I've said that multiple times, and I do feel that way too. What's going on, Robert Brown, Lafayette in the building, Rent Syndicate? What's going on, brother? What's going on? But still, wrestling has definitely been one of those things that, like, I do feel like God has put me on earth to do, is to wrestle. I've spoke about in previous lives that when I was younger, I wanted to be a basketball player. I wanted to be in the NBA. I wanted to play in the league. My favorite team was the Chicago Bulls, like everybody else's, and then it went to the Los Angeles Lakers. Then when I was watching the Bulls, Rodman was my favorite player. Don't judge me. And then when I started looking at the Lakers, Shaq was my favorite player. And then Kobe was a strong number 2. But then Kobe wound up being my favorite player, which is crazy because with that guy basically beating Kobe's record, having the most points in the game, I forgot his name. It's been a talking point on social media or whatever like that. You know, it doesn't dilute Kobe's legacy. Kobe is Kobe, right? And nothing against the guy. You know, I do wish him the best. But still, I wanted to play basketball. I was playing middle school. Sorry, y'all, this is reconnecting. So if it's lagging, it's because it's like every time I hit this spot on basketball, my brother, my cousins and stuff, almost every weekend we played basketball, we played football, but basketball was my thing. I let me not being chosen on the high school team, I let that deter me on not pursuing basketball at other spots, at camps, at gyms and stuff like that. I'm not doing that with wrestling. You know, God works in his own ways, and we abide by it. Sometimes we just have to, like, obviously let him be the driver. And I have no regrets when it comes to this wrestling thing, and I feel like we are continuing to grow, even with C3, with everything that's going on. You know, it's 14 years as a wrestler, 7 years as a wrestling promoter. So half of my wrestling career, I've been a promoter. Learning how to be a promoter is very, very important because I try to be a professional wrestler. So the professional wrestler tries to have professional wrestling company, which means show starts on time. We're not stiffing people for money. We're paying people on time. The wrestlers have gear. The wrestlers are professional. They're not saying nothing crazy. They're not saying nothing out of line. Nobody's in a lot of trouble. Nobody's doing things illegal. No one's doing anything illegal. We're doing these kind of things. Vetting wrestlers. You have to do that as a promoter, is to vet them. Look at background checks. What did they do? Because what you don't want is the wrong people around people they're not supposed to be around. You know, it's a lot of some dark stuff with wrestling and stuff with PDFs and stuff like that. And these people, they stop wrestling for a while and then they show up in other cities and other places and try to wrestle, or they try to come back to wrestling the same thing. Those kind of things are what we have to look for, because this is definitely a safe professional wrestling environment. We want the families to come out. When we promote, we say family friendly entertainment, which it is. It's a show for all ages. I know there's some wrestling shows that are for 21 and up, 18 and up, to each their own. But what I try to do is I do try to do things to like get the family involved. Hey, let's go to a C3 show. They got a good show and stuff like that. And honestly, I thank God because we are continuing to grow. We are continuing to grow. We are continuing to deliver stuff. We're getting more sponsorships, more looks. We're getting more things. And I'm just truly grateful. And I couldn't do it without the wrestlers. And I want to give thanks to those wrestlers as well, because if they're not there, there is no C3. There is no 7 years of C3 without the wrestlers who, you know, took a chance on me. Like, people like, oh, well, taking a chance as a promoter. Yeah, true, but they take a chance on me. Like, these guys and gals are very, very talented. They can go any place that they want and be treated right. And they decide to come wrestle for us. And they do great. And like I said, I know some people have like a God complex when it comes to it. I don't. I'm a creator, but I'm not. Nah, I'm just grateful for those kind of situations, man. I'm just grateful for C3. I'm grateful to be a wrestler, you know, through the ups and downs. You know, as a wrestler, sometimes people stop booking you. And I understand now as a promoter, I know how it is to not book people, but, you know, just being honest with them and not giving them a go ahead and a runaround, you know, that can be very, very difficult and stuff like that. People who you thought had your back, they didn't have your back. You know, and just sometimes I've acted out and I've done some things that I shouldn't have done, but at least I can apologize. I remember one time I was supposed to go against this guy, and I was just so upset because I felt like this guy wasn't ready to go against me. I was like, okay, I felt like if anybody else was the champion and they went against this guy, that you wouldn't even do that. And I felt bad afterwards, and I apologized to the guy because the guy wanted to wrestle me. And the attitude that I had was, nah, you not ready. And I didn't say it to him. I said it to my promoter. And I talked to my promoter and I apologized because I was wrong. Whatever the promoter wants as far as wrestling and stuff like that, sure, you can have an input, but this guy just wanted to wrestle. And what happened was I didn't even make it to the show because I was at a baby shower for Just Amazing and KO Kendra. I was at the baby shower, but still, I did not make it because of that. I just was pressed for time. But still, there are things that I have had to apologize for and stuff like that. And then there are things that people have done to me that I feel they should apologize, but I'm not going to lose an ounce of sleep over it. Sometimes people don't feel like they owe anybody anything. And that's just what happens, you know. What I just got to focus on me. You know, people, you wind up dying holding on to grudges with people who probably don't even have a grudge with you. They probably don't even see you that big of a deal to have a grudge. And that sounds bad, but it's the truth. That's the truth, man. Some people will do you wrong. You forgive them in your heart for you, not for them. Because if somebody does come around and actually want to treat you right, you would probably lash out on them. Sometimes people lash out on the nicest people, and that's just the most dangerous thing. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, appreciate it. So, those kind of things happen. But yeah, like I said, 14 years, man, that's, oof. 13 years. That's a long time to be wrestling, you know. Like I said, I've started with people who no longer wrestle now. And I know there are some people who've been wrestling longer than me, 28 years, 30 years, and they still in there. And it's just like I said, they inspire me to wrestle for a long time. And I do plan to wrestle for a long time. I think 14 years is a long time, but it doesn't compare to a lot of other people and stuff. But still, you know, I remember Arshawn for Critically Drinking. Shout out to him. Yeah, we do make mistakes, but sometimes you also have to, you know, hold yourself accountable to those mistakes. You know, sometimes we can't go off of, oh, well, you did me wrong, so this is how I'm gonna do it. Sometimes how you respond and how you handle being disrespected, that goes a long way too. Sometimes the person that's being disrespected is the loudest, and people just think that they're just disrespectful. So you always got to be careful with that kind of stuff. We should always say, sorry, I was wrong. Yeah. And I felt bad after it, and I still feel bad for it because I've always, like, did things that the promoter asked me to, and that was just definitely one of the ones like I need to put my foot down. And it definitely could have been a lot better than what it was. But, yeah, as far as, like, 14 years, like I said, it's a blessing in wrestling bars. It's a wrestling and blessing. blessed in wrestling bars. So it's like, I remember talking to Arshawn not too long ago, and he was like, "When do you plan on retiring?" And I was like, it probably won't be a big announcement that I'll retire. Like, to me, I want people to come see me wrestle. I want it to be genuine. I want you to see me for who I am as a wrestler. So whenever I, retire, you know, hopefully maybe people have cameras and stuff, but I don't want to just tell people that and all that. And I'm not saying that if I say, let's say I want to retire in April, and then people show up to a show in April to see me retire, I'm not even calling that fake love or whatever like that. But I just want it to just be like a natural thing to be in, like, I just want people to just like me as a wrestler, because I know I can wrestle. As a person, you don't have to like me as a person, but I want you to acknowledge that this wrestling is crucial. But still, wrestling has been very fun in my life. Um, Sometimes it does affect other things in my life. And I'm not saying it as a bad thing. I'm not even saying this for sympathy, because I chose to do this. I chose to do this over going to parties and doing certain things and hanging out with my wife and hanging out and doing certain things. Like, I've chosen to do these kind of things, and sometimes she is understanding, and sometimes she is frustrated, and then sometimes the things that I used to do as far as choosing a booking over being around her, I do feel a little bad, because I feel like this itch I had to scratch with wrestling. Like, I could continue to do good and wrestle and stuff like that. I've wrestled for companies I was only supposed to wrestle one time for, and then they gave me a belt. Oh, well, I got to defend the belt. I got to defend the belt because I'm a champion. I don't want to just vacate it. I've done these kind of things, or even with C3, doing certain things and doing risk and stuff like that, when I should be doing things a little better. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, it affects the body. It does affect the body, and I feel like I've done a great job with my body preservation because I work at a safer rate. Like, the only major injury I had was my left knee, and I made a video about it a couple years ago when I jumped off the top rope and I landed on my knee funny. I thought my leg was broken, my knee was broken, but it wasn't. It was just bone bruising. So, but I was out of work for a couple months. Those kind of things happen. I am grateful that nothing scar tissue, nothing too crazy or whatever like that. Don't really have pain. I think I had like a phantom pain about it. Like, I want it to hurt, and then it starts like getting sore. But other than that, still, I know some people that had less injuries and they retired because they just don't want to be hurt. And I definitely understand that. I know some guys, they just have to retire because their body just cannot take what their mind wants them to do as far as wrestling. So I'm grateful. I'm grateful for this thing called wrestling. Thank you. Appreciate it. I'm grateful for it. I'm trying to do better by working out and drinking more water, certain bookings, going against safer wrestlers and stuff like that. Not to say I went against anybody unsafe. I don't think I've ever went against somebody unsafe. Maybe that one time it don't, but still. Still, it's a blessing. It's definitely a blessing of a journey. Like I said, you're learning, and you're also listening, and then you're also growing and stuff. As a wrestler, I wasn't always Classic Alpha. I was Chris Classic at first, and I called myself Chris Classic when I do the Take It On podcast. Chris Classic was like the first name that I thought of to be as a wrestler, because I love old school wrestling, the Ultimate Warriors, the Undertakers, the Hulk Hogans and stuff like that, the Kamalas and Coco Bewares, the Vibrant Colors, the Macho Man, and all of this stuff. I'm just a big fan of it. The Razor Ramones, HBKs. So Chris Classic as in like the old school style of wrestling. So I would look at old clips of wrestlers and stuff, and I would learn it, and I'd be like, okay, well, I want to do this. I want to do that. We're going to do this. Old school. Nobody does this anymore. I'm going to do this old school so well that people think that it's new, and it's not. And I think I do a great job with it. Classic Alpha is just an extension of Chris Classic. Now I'm a superhero that's trying to save professional wrestling, because wrestling has been in turmoil for years, because so many people wearing tights and wearing boots calling themselves wrestlers. Even people who are wrestlers exposing the business because they want people to know what it is. They want to sell the story because they want to feel relevant. Matches are all the same. Wrestling is literally on life support, is barely breathing, and I am the breath of fresh air for professional wrestling. Thank you, appreciate it. So, but yeah, classic alpha. I don't know the alpha part. I just it just stuck with me. And the thing was, I changed my name to Classic Alpha when I had got my wrestling gear, and it said Classic, and I was like, why don't I become do like a superhero outfit? I was like, why don't be like Classic Alpha? Oh, okay, that works, and it still works. So, still just grateful, just grateful, grateful with wrestling. Like I said, it has growing pains and it has showing pains at the same time. And like I said, sometimes people make bad decisions when it comes to wrestling. And to me, I think I made, for the most part, the best decisions. But I did want to speak about that for a little bit. Thank you guys for hearing me ramble a little bit. 14 years in the business. People, they say don't meet your heroes. I've seen a lot of them. Some of them are cool and some of them are But I can also be the hero that I always wanted to see and look up to. And I've had heroes with my dad, my mom, my parents, my uncles and stuff like that. But sometimes, you want to incorporate it to be the hero for your children and for your nieces and nephews and stuff like that. So I hope you guys and gals have a wonderful day, man. Thank you for listening to me. This is Chris Classic. Let's take it home.